This is the Jillian Greyse Show, Vibrational Architect. I teach the discipline of redesigning the internal patterns that shape your love, your relationships, and the life you quietly know you were meant to live. Whether you're moving through familiar emotional cycles or you're a high achiever who senses there's more available to you, you're in the right place. This is where people learn to master the architecture of their lives and release the patterns holding them back from their inner blueprint. Each episode ends with a guided transmission to anchor the vibration we're working with so you can fully step into becoming the architect of your own life. Join me, Jillian Greyse, as we pull back the layers and rebuild the vibration you were always meant to live from. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Jillian Greyse Show. On this episode, we are going to chat about the space where we stop performing versions of ourselves that we've already outgrown and we start telling the truth about who we actually are, what we actually feel, and what our lives are actually trying to tell us. Today's episode is one of the most important conversations that we're going to have as we enter this new journey, as we step into our vibration and we begin to learn to master it, because it explains a moment that everyone misinterprets. It's a moment that feels like chaos, like failure, like collapse, but it's actually a clear sign that you're evolving. And so many are going through this right now. I have regular appointments every single week with people who are struggling to understand this. We are at a point where a lot of what we previously aligned with is no longer within our vibration. That's what happens when you start working through things from a frequency standpoint and not just from an action-based standpoint. You move from the physical and you move into the quantum. And once you do that, the same rules don't apply. So, what we're going to be talking about is the moment where reality pushes back, the moment where the life you built starts resisting you, glitching, falling apart, or just feeling too small. And not because you're doing something wrong, but because you've outgrown the vibration that built it. If you've been feeling like nothing fits, nothing's right, nothing feels like you anymore, this episode is going to feel like oxygen. So, let's dive in. What it actually means when your reality pushes you back. So there's a moment in everyone's evolution, especially if you start recognizing that you want to evolve and you start grabbing the reins and directing them, where your external world stops cooperating with the version that you've been pretending to be. And this can happen on a multitude of different scales. So you could be on the end of the scale of this where you have really refined who you are as a person. You have moved out a lot of your quote unquote karma or a lot of your lessons that you need to. And the people around you are reflections of those lessons. So therefore, they no longer fit. Or you could be on the other end of this spectrum where you are the one with the karma. You are the one with the lessons. You haven't been seeing those things. You've been hiding behind those that are evolving around you. And suddenly that doesn't fit. So there can be two ends of the spectrum. I most often deal with people who are on the end of the spectrum where they've done the work and they've outgrown the frequencies around them and they're standing trying to figure out where all of that fits. So there comes a moment where that external world stops cooperating with that version that you have been pretending to be. And at first, it's subtle. It feels like just a little friction, a little irritation, a little sense of, wait a second, this doesn't feel like me anymore. This doesn't feel right. Or why is this person behaving like this or treating me like this? And then it gets louder. The job you tolerated becomes unbearable. The relationship you've managed and struggled to keep emotionally alive becomes so heavy. The routines you relied on begin to suffocate you. The conversations you used to have feel empty. The identity you wore like armor starts cracking. And this is the moment where people panic. They think, I'm losing control. How did this get messed up? It's falling apart. I need to fix myself. But what's actually happening for the people who have evolved is your reality is rejecting the version of you that built it. And that can be very hard to see. And that rejection isn't happening because you're wrong. It's not because you're failing. And it's not because you're not evolving. It's because you are evolving. Your life isn't collapsing, it's recalibrating. And recalibration always feels like loss before it feels like alignment. I talk about this often Now, when you can understand what it feels like when you are in alignment and your world around you is misaligned, and be able to decode whether it's your learning lessons and your karma or the karma of the people that are around you, is rather simple. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can tell pretty easily what that feels like. So, if you're in a situation where you feel like you're just not seeing the same reflection going on in your outer world, your relationship is shifting, and the things that are going on in that relationship are producing a feeling of no longer feeling aligned with it. If it's you who has outgrown it and not your karma, you are not going to be triggered by anything that the other person's doing. You're not going to be triggered by what's happening. You're going to be inquisitive. You're going to feel like you don't quite understand what's occurring. That anger piece that a lot of people will say flares up when you think you've gone through something unjust or something that's very upsetting doesn't exist. You almost step back and it becomes a collection of information as you're evolving. So that's hard to explain if you're not in the process of going through it, but I know so many of you are. The evolution within you, when the world around you is changing or you're changing and that world no longer fits, and it's you who is uplifting, you're not going to have that same anger button. And many people who have gone through situations that they feel like are unjust, they're not going to understand that. They're not going to understand why you're not going through that point of being really angry or feeling like, I'm not going to do this anymore, or I can't stand this. It's because you've evolved past it, not because it's a learning lesson within you. So there's 7 subtle signs that you're outgrowing your life, and we're going to break those down piece by piece and not in a dramatic one. These are the ones that people ignore when they're focused on trying to keep up with the social norms rather than really listen to their soul and how they're evolving. One is micro irritations. These are things that never bothered you before. And this isn't an irritation because you're moody. This is a, wait a second, I can't compress myself into this anymore. I don't want to tolerate someone who does this, or I don't want to tolerate this being what happens or how I'm treated. That tolerance drops because your alignment is rising. It creates an awareness. Again, not an anger, just an awareness. Like you notice it deeper than you did before. Next is your level of emotional awareness clearly stops being satisfying. You're doing the same things, but they don't feel the same. That emotional energy is gone. You're not ungrateful. You're not checked out. You're not self sabotaging. You're simply no longer a match to the performance that that emotional frequency is calling you towards in your own life. And what I mean by that is you'll do things that you always did, but you'll be trying to keep the peace with those around you. And suddenly it'll seem like, I'm tired of trying to do this. I'm tired of being the one who's orchestrating all this. I'm tired of being the one who's always trying to put this together. You begin to have a deeper connection to your role and what that role has brought towards you. Then you'll find sudden misalignments. Plans seem to fall through. Nothing seems to work out when you're trying to put something together. Opportunities dissolve. Doors close that would usually open easily. This isn't bad luck. It's the universe pushing back, and it's the old timeline collapsing. Fourth, you'll start to become energetically fatigued. Not tired, not depressed, just done. Done with the version that carried this life, done with the version that was the emotional laborer of everything. You're going to be done pretending, done with the identity that no longer fits. This exhaustion comes from holding up a life you've outgrown. Next, repeating patterns. The same issue shows up in different forms. The same lesson, the same dynamic, the same discomfort. Not because you're in shock, but because you're being shown the exit. Patterns repeat until you stop participating in the version of you that created them. And this is when that dissolving really begins. This is when you start to see things from a different level and you start to actually pull your energy away. Next is unexpected endings. Jobs end, relationships shift, friendships fade, opportunities evaporate. It's not punishment, it's pruning. Your life is removing what can't come with you if it stays at that state. And that's the most hardest thing, especially when we deal with a culture that wants to focus so much on failures. And if you don't fit a social norm or inside a social box of sort, you're a failure for not being able to do it. When the truth is, we're growing more rapidly in our culture than any other time period on this planet. We are in an accelerated point of not only releasing our karma, but also standing into our true authenticity. We are in the middle of a shift of how humans function on this planet and what our relationship with that function is. So we're going to find that there are different alignments that have to occur in order to support that. So some of the old social norms are not going to apply moving forward. And that's something that as you evolve, and I help so many of my clients with this, you have to learn to accept. You have to learn to accept that this isn't a failure, it's a liberation. And as long as you're on the right side of the karma of that liberation, you aren't the one that's hurting people. You aren't the one that's tearing things apart. You aren't the one that's refusing to look at things. You aren't the one that's making choices that are harmful. You aren't the one that's going against what your inner compass is telling you. That's how you can know that you're stepping into your truth. You're stepping into your identity, and you're stepping into that timeline that suits you better. Last but not least, one of the ways to tell that this evolution is taking place is through your body, your intuition. Your energy refuses to participate in the old script. You can't force yourself to care. You can't force yourself to stay. You can no longer force yourself to shrink. This is the moment your evolution becomes non-negotiable. So there's a frequency of mechanics when you're outgrowing your own life. So let's talk about what happens on an energetic level. Every version of you has a vibration. Every frequency has a reality attached to it. So when you evolve, your frequency upgrades, but your life doesn't instantly rearrange itself. There's a lag. That's because you're dealing with, again, the physical and not the quantum. So the quantum evolves. The physical has a lag because it's a slower and lower and denser vibration. So it has to catch up. And during that lag, you're going to really feel the friction between who you're becoming and the life built by who you were. That friction for many people is interpreted as chaos, but it's not chaos. It's the misalignment revealing itself. Your reality isn't falling apart. It's simply out of resonance with where you're going. And when something falls out of resonance, it can't stay. And this is why old relationships start to feel foreign, old habits start to feel heavy, old environments start to feel suffocating, old identities feel false. You're not going backwards. You're not losing yourself. You're not failing. You're shedding. And this shedding always feels like breaking before it feels like becoming. This is where people find the most difficulty when they're interpreting the pushback without collapsing. So people get the most stuck here. They interpret the pushback as danger instead of direction. So let's reframe this. When your reality pushes back, it's not saying stop, go backwards. You're wrong, especially if you're the one on the side of the karma where you aren't in the middle of creating the negative karma, of standing in your own karma, of being forced into seeing that negative reflection of your shadow. This is for the people who are on the outskirts of that, who have evolved, who have dealt with what they needed to in a way that was the least karmic or harmful to the souls around them. Now, we often, or those who are in this situation, interpret that pushback as danger instead of direction. What we have to do here is reframe it. When your reality pushes back, it's not saying stop, go back, you're wrong. It's saying, wait a second, this version of you is complete. There's nothing left for you here. You have to move. And this is how to interpret those signals correctly. Resistance means release. If something is resisting you, it's releasing you. Irritation means misalignment. Your body knows before your mind does. So if your body is telling you, this just doesn't feel right, or I just don't want to keep doing this, or why is this happening? And you're irritated, not angry, just irritated, like something just doesn't feel like it fits. Your body is telling you that it no longer is in line with your vibration. Fatigue means completion. You're not tired. You're just done. You're done with all of it. You're done with trying to fit a mold that you no longer do. Repetition means redirection. The pattern is not punishing you. It's pointing you in the direction that you need to look into. Collapse means recalibration. Your life is reorganizing itself around that new frequency. When you interpret the pushback correctly, you stop fighting the collapse and you start partnering with it. And that's when everything starts to flow. So, what do you do when your life starts rejecting the old version of you? First, here's your clean protocol. You want to stop forcing what's resisting you. If it's resisting you, it's not for you. And I don't care if that's a job. I don't care if that's a location. I don't care if that's a person. I don't care if it's a relationship. Whatever it is, if it's resisting you, it's not for you. And if it's not for you, you don't want to try to force it. Tell the truth about what no longer fits. There's no reason to be polite. There's a reason to be real. And you have to say that truth out loud. You could say that truth to yourself. This version no longer fits for these reasons. Become aware of it. As soon as you bring it into your awareness, you bring it to life, you bring it into your mindset, and you start to be able to vibrate from it. Next, let that misalignment be information. It's not crisis, it's information. It's information about where you're going versus where you've been. It's information about the people you've been surrounding yourself with versus the people you deserve to have around you. It's information. Next, make micro adjustments towards the version of you that feels more accurate. You don't have to do a complete reinvention. You have to do an alignment. And that's another way to tell what side of a frequency you're on during a situation like this. If you want to throw everything away and reinvent yourself, that's the karmic side. That's the side that's saying you're trying to escape. That's the side that's saying you don't want to take accountability. That's the side where you have the lessons. But if you want to align more with your truth, with the heart inside of you, with how you can answer the question, how do I move forward in love? That's how you know that you're aligning. And you're aligning with the version of you that's meant to thrive. Hold discomfort without interpreting it as danger. Discomfort is expansion, and it can often feel like a lack of security. It can feel fear. It can feel like everything has been collapsing around you. But that discomfort is really the opportunity for you to expand. And in that next door, you will be taken care of. Let the old version of you die with dignity. This one's tough. That version of you got you there. She did her job. Can rest now. It's over. Let that version go so the new one can unfold. So in closing, I know so many of you out there are going through this right now because it's not just a person-to-person thing. It's a collective thing. We're releasing karma. We're letting go of ancestral frequencies that have held back our entire souls for so long. And in those dynamics, there's always a catalyst and someone who's learning the process. There's always a mirror. Those lessons involve two sides. So it isn't two wrongs. A lot of times it's one right and the other one trying to figure out where they were wrong or where they're wronging themselves and their frequencies. So if you find yourself on the end of it, that's the catalyst that's choosing to ignite someone. I want you to take a step back and go easy on you because that's a beautiful job to have. And in the end, what's evolving from the vibration within you will be everything that you dreamt of, except this time you won't have to fight for it. You won't have to beg. You won't have to pretend. You won't have to shield your light. You get to be you. And you can observe the others around you as they find out who they are and as they grow in their own way, release their own lessons and release their own karma. But those are two very different paths. So make sure that you don't get caught up in those paths, or else you're going to find that you take on karma that isn't yours. You take on lessons that weren't meant for you, and you stay stuck. And that's why your vibration is so important to always architect. As always, I do a guided transmission at the end of each episode. This transmission is designed to bring you into the frequency of where we are headed, to bring your vibration into what you're calling towards you. And it takes everything we talked about and puts it into a vibrational perspective for you to be able to take with you and attune your frequency to. I encourage you to come back to these transmissions as often as you need to. And as always, make sure that you are honoring you and your growth in every way you can possible. I invite you to come with me to relax, close your eyes as we begin. Take a deep breath. Wherever you are, soften your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and let your breath drop lower into your body. Close your eyes if you can. This transmission is for the part of you that knows you're outgrowing your life, even if you haven't said it out loud yet. Breathe in and out. Let your awareness drop into the center of your chest. Feel the version of you that's been trying to emerge, the one you've been sensing, the one you've been resisting, the one who feels more accurate, more grounded, more honest. And let them come closer. Now imagine the life you've been living, the routines, the relationships, the patterns, the expectations. Imagine it as the structure that surrounds you. Not good, not bad, just a structure. Notice where that structure feels too tight, where it feels outdated, where it feels like it was built for a version of you that no longer exists. Now breathe into places where that structure is cracking. Not to fix it, to acknowledge it. You're not breaking, you're expanding. You're not losing everything in life. You're outgrowing it. You're not being punished. You're being realigned. Now, in your mind, speak this truth to yourself. I release the version of me that built this life. I honor that version. I thank that version. And now I let that version go. Feel the shift. Feel the spaciousness. Feel the new architecture forming around you. Not fully built yet, but present. It's waiting for your yes. So take a deep breath and invite it in. When you're ready, come back into your body, back into this room, back into this moment. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're not failing. You're evolving. And your reality is simply catching up. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Jillian Greyse Show. I'm going to encourage you to please like, share, leave a review for this podcast so that we can continue to spread the word and continue to grow. As always, my name is Jillian Greyse, and I'll chat with you again next week. Let this episode settle into your system. And if someone in your life is moving through their own patterns or stepping into their next level, send this episode to them. The vibration you're integrating becomes stronger when it's shared. And if you feel called, liking the show or leaving a review helps this work to reach people who are meant to find it. I'm Jillian Greyse, and I'll meet you in the next episode as we keep rebuilding the blueprint that you were always meant to live from.